Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Babble. One less quack. And I mean that in the most loving way. About a week and a half now, Phil Roberson of Duck Call, aka Duck Dynasty, fame passed away a few days ago. And actually, I like the show and everybody on it. I know there's some kind of good old boys, but I can't help but like them. And they were kind of a guilty pleasure for me, where I felt like I'm not supposed to like these country boys, but I do. Or like Uncle Si, hey Jack, I do. I can't, I can't help it. And so I feel like James Brown, but people wouldn't expect that, But anyways, it is what it is. They seemed like they were well-rounded people, and just seemed like what I liked about them a lot is also the Robertsons that they were real. They seemed like everyday people. They really did. Like you could go up and talk to any of them and hold a conversation for a while. Daddy maybe if you were talking about dude stuff probably. But other than that, they seemed like everyday people. And I know it was a reality TV show, and of course, reality TV shows are manipulated to some extent. But still, I feel like their true personalities shine through. But another thing I love about the Robertson family is they let the skeletons out of the closet and lay them on the kitchen table. And I'm saying they were open about their past lives and all the things they went through, and to get to where they are now, which is a rare thing. Drinking, using drugs, promiscuity. I think mainly on Phil's part because he was a football player and very popular and everybody liked him, and of course kissing his butt, and so, but on both sides mainly Phil. But it was refreshing to see that from religious people. When you're a Christian, you're supposed to keep that crap quiet. You're supposed to keep those skeletons in the closet. Back when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, if you saw someone who didn't go to church or saw them smoking a cigarette, if you saw them buying beer or drinking beer, you told everybody, or somebody told you, hey, I saw you weren't in church Sunday, or yeah, he was at the mall, he didn't even go to church that day, or yeah, I caught him smoking a cigarette. It was like we were so uptight. It was a big deal, if you didn't go to church and we saw you doing, oh, I saw him smoking a cigarette, oh, it's just weird, so just crazy to see how we've come now, just a little bit more relaxed, But Phil talked about his wild partying days and how he had a spiritual awakening, I believe, and was ministered to by some pastor who eventually, brought him to God and so forth. And Phil, from what you see on the show, is pretty gung-ho on some God, Jesus, whatnot. And even all the way to the end, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but, got me to wondering if there's a connection between those who have lived just wild young lives and those who become kind of Jesus freaks, and it's just people who just really just went all out, just had a good old time, who all of a sudden, I don't know if they get scared, oh, I've done so much crap, I better really get to atoning, and I just wonder a little bit when those who didn't do, who didn't just wow out, can't, they can be into Jesus, but not to that extreme, you know what I'm saying? Those who are not just out there just sinning to the hills, to the hilltop, we're just not to that extreme as some folks are. Makes you wonder now, like, how much stuff have you done back in the day? Because you were just so I've got to say a scripture, I've got to, you got to come to, you just wonder how much stuff have they done. Everybody don't do all that, you know what I'm saying? Everybody don't do all that. But anyway, I've heard of people who used to be gang leaders, turning into pastors now, and people who are part of Prince's revolution, his entourage and stuff, gangster rappers, all of a sudden turning over a new leaf and becoming leaders in the church, which is always kind of like, and that's not a bad thing, but you always, these people who just have extremely wild lives, just doing everything and everybody, kind of coming to Jesus. I don't know if when everything kind of hits the fan, they finally kind of come to Jesus, they don't come to Jesus too early. They don't want to come when everything's good, but after they, I don't know if the money's run out or they catch a disease or whatever it is, they finally come to Jesus. But then, what's the alternative? Either live that wild lifestyle and eventually die in it, or just have a miserable life, just be really just messed up from it. So yeah, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Come to Jesus, okay, yeah, you know. So and turn your life around, yeah, you know, consider the alternative. Considering the alternative. Um, but anyway, so something that struck me about Phil Robertson's funeral was some of his sons kind of touched on the how emotionally distant he was, and basically emotionally unavailable. And I know a lot of people could relate to that, especially coming, from their fathers or so forth. He was present, he gave good advice. They hunted and fished together, which is better than nothing at all. But something is still missing. Like all Christians, uh, Phil can love. Wait, no, well, sorry. Like all Christians, Phil loved the Lord. People just really, when he came to Jesus, he really came to Jesus. He loved him, some Lord, some God. But it still amazes me how you can love something, or that you can't, something that you can't touch. You can't feel. I mean, you can feel the spirit, that comes. But something you can't touch, you can't physically see. But struggle to show and tell your family, your children, that you love them and give them that loving hand, that loving touch, that pat on the back, that big hug. Love God so much and say I love the Lord. I verbally say I love the Lord, but you can't tell your son I love you. I'm standing right here in front of you, Dad. I can't say I love you, but I can say I love the Lord. I just find that I find it a little troubling. That you love the Lord, and the Bible says something like, I don't know word for word, love your neighbor as you love him. If you love yourself, includes your family, your wife, and whatnot. And I think he probably said it to his wife, maybe easier than he could maybe another man, his sons. Maybe I think he told his wife probably at the time he loved her, but I think something about his sons being males that he probably had a problem with. There must have been something he must have come up. You always have to wonder what he came from. If you think your dad is that emotionally unavailable, imagine what his dad was like. And don't forget, this would have been, if his dad was born, let's just say, I don't know, the Robinsons weren't overly, let's say in the 50s, then his dad would have been born, in the 20s. The Great Depression era, and it was probably even way worse for Phil Robertson's dad. Probably really didn't hear I love you. It was really, don't say a word, stay out of my way, be seen, not heard. It was probably even worse, you know. But anywho, how can you not be jealous of God if you're his sons who get to love, who when God gets the love that you don't? I know they had to be a little bit like, wow, he's really into this. Maybe, and now that he's found God, maybe they're probably waiting for it. He's found God. He loves God so much now. Now he's going to be a more loving father to me. And I want to say waited for it and waited for it and waited for it, and it just didn't happen. But he loves the Lord, but he doesn't quite love you in the way he loves the Lord. I mean, he cares about you, and he feels I'm providing for you. You have food, you have shelter, whatever. And he feels that's love. A lot of guys just feel that way. They just feel that is how they show their love, and that you shouldn't need for me to say I love you. You've got a roof over your head. You have food. You have clothes. What are you talking about? I didn't even have all that when I was growing up. So, what are you complaining about? And people it seems like such a small thing to them for you to say I love you. It's easier to say I love you than you go to work and put a roof over my head and go do this and do this. When a few seconds I love you. How long it takes I love you? 2 seconds or something like that. But you'd rather go do all this other harder stuff, put a roof over my head and feed me, when I love you could have been boom, like that. How many people grow up with a dad in the house but not a father? You could feel that his sons still kind of yearn for that. They still yearn for it. His son's got to be 50-something now. Still yearn for it. I can only hope that Phil gave some kind of deathbed confession on that. I hate that stuff, where people just get scared of death, and now they can do and say all the stuff they couldn't, it happens all the time. Do and say all the stuff they couldn't say for the last 50, 60, 70 years, whatnot, and so, but then that death nail comes, and all of a sudden, oh, I love you, before I go in the coffin, I love you, Mom, and they don't get to enjoy that love when they're alive, they're gone, just like robbing them, what I'm saying? But you can only hope that he made some kind of deathbed confessional where he was finally able to tell his sons, I love you. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud of you, your life, your family, what you've done with yourself. something. But there is no mention of that in the funeral service, whatnot. That he finally heard his dad say, "I love you," whatnot. You know, that could be a private thing. Maybe he didn't want to say it, or maybe his dad said, "Don't tell nobody I said that." You know, just being funny. But still, on the flip side, I know Miss K tried to give enough love to her sons to fill in the gaps from their father. You know, and she just seems like such a loving person. You know, that she just love any. She'd give a stranger a hug if they needed it. You know, when not. But that's something just a lot of mothers unfortunately have to do to fill in the gaps for the stuff their fathers don't do, don't want to do, or not there to do and provide sometimes too. But fortunately, along with their mother, I felt that their Uncle Si, one of my favorite, was not as closed up or on being another father. He was not as closed up on being another father figure that could show emotions and verbally tell his nephews that he loved them and that he knew, probably told him that he knew Phil did do. You know, Phil's his brother. He probably didn't mind saying, I know, you know your dad loved you. He never told you. But Sly is when he don't mind, he'll cry and so I hope they were able to get something from their uncle's side that they couldn't get from their dad. Still not their dad, but close enough, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, the happy ending for this story is that you definitely get the sense and see for your own eyes that Phil's sons will not pass on the legacy of being emotionally closed up to their children, as their dad was to them. You know, give your kids what you wanted from your dad. Okay, I know the brothers also give that same love to each other. They're not afraid. They say, you know, they tell each other. I guarantee they tell each other, hey, I love you, Jeb. I love you. You know, they're okay to say all of that. Willie, I love you. I guarantee they do for themselves, or their daddy could not give them. But anyway, the Duck Dynasty evolved into being more loving ducks. They're one quack away now, one less quack, but they evolved to be even more loving ducks, and that's great to see that, you can start off one way and end up in a better place than you began. So rest in peace, Phil Roberson, and the ducks, all the ducks, quack quacks, rest in peace.